This is gonna be one of those videos that I try to not edit. I'm just gonna talk. I did write some notes down because there is quite a lot that I want to get into, but the setup that we have going on here is very last minute, just kind of going with the flow. There is some noise next to my laptop. You're probably gonna hear it. It's gonna pick it up for sure because it's literally right next to it. There's like a mini fridge. But we're just gonna roll. We're just gonna roll with the punches. And I think it's time I make this video because this video has been a long time coming. And I want to make sure that I say everything that I want to say, which is why I waited. I think I was processing a lot of what I want to say. So if I look down, it's because I have my notes right here. I want to make sure that I don't forget anything. Let me just make sure that we're recording so that we can go, okay, beautiful, amazing. Today is Friday, February 13th, 2026. And by the time you see this video, it will be up and the title will be 2025 Broke Me. But before we get to that, before we get to me, I want to start off by talking about February 2nd of 2026, so a couple weeks ago. And I'm actually so glad that I waited to make this video because had I not waited, I would not have had this documentary style video to talk about. But a couple weeks ago, and I will leave this video in the description box, I saw this documentary style video about Avicii. And if you don't know who Avicii was, he was a Swedish DJ and a musical genius to many. I mean, I would definitely call him a musical genius in many ways. Who unfortunately killed himself back in April 20th of 2018 in the country of Oman, and he was only 28 years old. He was very successful in the 2010s. So I saw this documentary about him and his tragic life in the music industry a couple weeks ago. And some key takeaways that I got from that were, first of all, his stage name being Avicii. It's so crazy to think that not only does that name have multiple meanings, but one of them being lowest level of hell in Buddhism, and the second being without peace. And this was his stage name. His birth name was Tim Berglund. He was Swedish, so I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I am not Swedish myself. But the fact that his stage name, very ironically speaking, in the most tragic of ways, ended up being kind of like a full circle parallel moment into what his artistic life became. I just can't stop thinking about that ever since I saw that documentary. So that was the first key takeaway that I got from that video. And I'm gonna try to tie all these knots because there's a lot of points, but trust me, it will all make sense hopefully at the end why I'm bringing all of these things up. The second key takeaway from that documentary about Avicii was this crazy thought of how it's possible that your favorite years of life could be someone else's living hell, could be someone else's absolute nightmare. 2012 and 2013, I was 10 and 11 years old. And I consider those 2 years to be my favorite years of life. Of my 23 years of life so far, my favorite years that I have been alive have been 2012 and 2013. I remember those 2 years very fondly. I was in 5th and 6th grade. But knowing that to be true, for me personally, I was still a child. These 2 years were, I didn't know this man personally. I didn't get the honor to speak with him in real life. I would have loved to. I didn't know Avicii in person. But I can only imagine, probably, that these 2 years of his life were a living nightmare. Because he was exploited by the industry. He would have to play hundreds of shows back to back, worldwide. Again, really, really successful DJ. So he would play at clubs, at festivals, at raves. And he was booked and busy in the worst exploitative way. And being that he was naturally introverted, which is something that I also consider myself to be, I find a lot of peace in my solitude. I love being by myself. It is where I get a lot of my energy from. It is where I gain a lot of my peace. And knowing that he was naturally introverted, but his job required him to be at every other festival, at every other club, hundreds of shows a year. He turned to painkillers and to alcohol, as many do, to get through the day. And it ended up killing him and his spirit on the inside. And I talk about music a lot and how it's my biggest passion and it's what I want to do. If I could choose to do anything for the rest of my life, it would be to record these songs that I've written, to put out these projects, to release songs and music that I have been working on for literal decades of my life at this point. And there's only been 2 decades of lived life for me so far. But there's been a lot of songs and a lot of projects that I have in mind that I would love to see come to life. But I refuse to play this game that this music industry loves to play. Because it fucks with people's life. It kills people. These are human beings that are being exploited time and time again. How many artists with their repeated stories Not the same stories, but very much similar. A lot of similarities between all of these artists. And then my second point, alongside Avicii, I want to talk about Britney Spears. Now that we're talking about the music industry. Because even before Avicii, you have 10-year-old Britney Spears. Again, I was 10 in 2012. One of my favorite years of life, as every child should experience. A happy childhood. But you have 10-year-old Britney Spears. From the outside, looks very glamorous, right? She's on TV. She's singing in singing shows, in singing competitions. She's acting in different TV shows. But also, at the same time, 10-year-old Britney Spears is being sexualized. Again, we're talking about a child. Who at 10 is being sexualized not only by old white men, but by the entire media during this time. It is disgusting. And it is just one of those things that we just don't talk about enough. And knowing all of what Britney has gone through, and is still going through, I cannot imagine what that trauma does to someone. And thankfully, Britney is still alive. Now, why did I talk about Avicii and Britney Spears for the first, I don't know how many minutes I've been talking so far? I have struggled with my mental health for as long as I can remember at this point in my life. There is a saying, pulling a Britney. When people say that they're pulling a Britney, we all know what that means. There's a negative connotation to that for the most part, especially if you are a woman or someone with long hair and you decide to shave it off or cut it off or chop it off. In my case, the negative connotation makes sense. And I will get into that in a little bit. But overall, I don't like that saying because some people just want to cut their hair. I mean, partially, I did cut my hair because I wanted to. I chopped all of my hair off for the new year because, first of all, I simply really did want to. I am no stranger to changing up my hair. I am no stranger to short hair. In fact, I prefer my hair short. It's always been that way. So that's one of my many problems with this pulling a Britney stereotype that a lot of people have. When someone cuts their hair, automatically it's like, this person is going through a mental breakdown. When that is a lot of times not the case. Some people just want to cut their hair or they want to have a change of hairstyle. Sometimes it really just is as simple as that. But I do understand where it comes from because of what happened to Britney back in 2007, I believe it was, when she shaved her hair. This makes me so upset to think about these things. No one that I'm about to talk about has bad intentions. And I'm not trying to shame anyone, and I'm not trying to shade anyone in any way, shape, or form when I say this, but unfortunately, one of the first things that some people, a couple of people this happened to actually, in my case, one of the first things I was asked when I decided to shave all of my hair off was if it had to do with my mental health, you know, am I having a mental breakdown, or like, does this have anything, like, is this concerning? Should this be of concern? And again, as I mentioned earlier, as someone that suffers from mental illness, and I've had a past with suicide attempts, and I've struggled with my mental health in the past. I understand where the concern comes from, but it also irks me a little bit. Because of what I had just said. Sometimes people really do just want to cut their hair, you know? And it's unfortunate now that that carries a negative connotation to it, no matter what the reasoning is behind your new hairstyle. But I get it, you know, I can see why people connect those two together, right? A shaved head or you shaving all of your hair off must mean that you are going through a mental breakdown. It's not always the case, but it is what is commonplace for a lot of people. And in my case, specifically, that is partially true. When the people in my life, the couple of people that had asked me if that was the case, I didn't know how to respond at the time, which is, again, sort of like how I mentioned earlier throughout the video, or in the beginning, why I hadn't made the video, specifically the one I'm filming right now. 2025 broke me. The reason I hadn't filmed that video yet was because I hadn't gathered my thoughts yet. So I guess this video is technically me about to answer that question of, is your new hairstyle a mental breakdown of sorts? And partially, yes. At the time, I didn't have the words for it. And I probably still don't, to be honest. I'm not feeling very confident in my articulation right now, but I'm trying my best. The way I described last year, 2025, and I journaled about this the other day, I felt like 2025 used me as a emotional punching bag. And I've had really low points in my life. I've had really bad years. I've had suicide attempts before. And so I've reached rock bottom before. But last year, I think there was just no breaks in between any of the chaos. There's always at least a break, in my personal experience, right? I don't know if anyone else feels this way, if anyone else that struggles with their mental health, if that is how they experience it, but some years are better than others, of course. But the reason why last year was the worst year of my life was because it was just turmoil and utter chaos and utter haphazardness of life. Life was messy. Life was everything and nothing at the same time. In ways I can't describe. Like, I can't describe what I'm trying to say. No words will do this justice. Something in me broke last year. And I'm afraid that I just will not recover that part of me. And I needed change. I needed to start over. I needed a fresh start. I needed something. Like, I needed to take weights off of my shoulder, literally speaking, and my hair was just getting... It was becoming a lot for me to maintain, first of all. Having curly hair, having a lot of hair on top of that. It just felt like the most reasonable option for me. And a very comfortable one, because again, I'm very comfortable cutting my hair. And so, yes, this is, I guess you can say, a mental breakdown of sorts. Ever since 2020, during the pandemic, I make sure that I write annual journal reflections. I reflect on the year that has just passed, and I try to look for patterns. I try to analyze what my life was like this past year. See if there are any words that continue showing up, any phrases, any ways of living. And every year since 2020, I've had a word for each year. And for 2025, I narrowed it down to 4 words, because I couldn't even pick one. Dark. Now, if you've seen any of my videos by now, you know that I love Dark, the album by Eden. It is my favorite album of last year. And very fitting, simple 4-letter word for what 2025 was for me. Dark. Just complete darkness. Which is so crazy, because also 2025 has been the most fulfilling and satisfying year of my life as well, in the most contradicting of ways. I am a walking contradiction. I just live in a perpetual state of frustration with myself and with just not being able to verbally express myself in ways that make sense. My mind is so scattered constantly. But in a way, those two things coexist. 2025 has been the worst year of my life, but has also been the most fulfilling and satisfying year of my life because I've finally started living for myself. No matter how shitty life was and how shitty life got. And there was not a single day last year that my mind did not go to dark places. The negative spirals, the negative thought patterns that just never stopped. And that was all year, from January to December. The suicidal ideations were very, very strong last year. "2025 was not only dark, it was also my identity crisis. Now, something I've been thinking about a lot is, are we never not in an identity crisis as humans? Because we are constantly evolving, we are constantly changing. The ironic thing about life is that the only constant is change. You are constantly going to be a different person because you are going to be gaining new experiences, and so therefore you are going to be changing as you grow up, as you age. So are we not always constantly trying to find ourselves? Aren't we constantly building ourselves up and then tearing that version of ourselves down and then building a new one up? Like, I don't think I'm ever not going to be in an identity crisis. But I'm just glad that I am no longer using a fake accent when I make videos, because I feel I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm so fucking tired of hiding. I'm so fucking tired of not being me. I'm tired of running away from myself. And yes, I'm scared of being perceived, but aren't we all? So are we just always going to be in identity crisis mode as humans? I'll leave in the description of this video as well the 2 vlogs that I made back in August about my identity crisis, if you are interested to hear more about that. And then the last word from 2025 was resentment. And by the time this video goes up, the latest video of mine that I would have posted long form anyways would be my on resentment video. So I'll also leave that one linked in the description if you want to know more about my specific experience with resentment. I don't go too deeply into it. There's a mixture of a lot that I talk about in that video, but resentment has been a huge, huge feeling. And it's burdensome. It is heavy. And the thing about my resentment is that it is not directed at one person. I journaled about this as well before filming this video, actually. I was just journaling about an hour or 2 ago about fucked circumstances and how life is just fucked circumstances sometimes. I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, but I do believe that some things happen for a reason, and then the other part of the things that happen, they're just fucked circumstances. there is no reasoning behind it, and us trying to find a reasoning is what drives us insane, is what drives us mad, because we try to play God when we are not. Or whatever spiritual being, whatever higher power you have faith or believe in. I'm not sure. That's another one of those things that I think about as well, that I just don't even know what the fuck I'm doing here. Or what is anything, what is life, I don't know. But a lot of my resentment just comes from fucked circumstances. It's never at one person. It is just how life plays out, how a lot of things just are, and a lot of things are out of our control. And as a control freak, as someone who needs and feels the need to have control all the time, even though, again, I'm not God, so a lot of things are just simply out of my control. And that bothers me, unfortunately, but it's one of those things I need to learn to deal with. But a lot of life is simply just fucked circumstances for a lot of it. Not most of it, but there's just a lot of things we cannot control. And because I've never been really eloquent or outspoken with the people in my life about my feelings, still to this day, I don't know how to have face-to-face, real conversations with people in my life about how I feel, or my emotional state, or my mental not being well. I don't talk about these things. And so a lot, I suppress a lot, but then I carry so much. I feel like I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders constantly. And I feel the need to constantly be doing something. Always having to fix everything. Because there goes that control, that need to control. And so I think it's a mixture of all of that, the suppression, the perfectionism, the need to control life, and then everything surrounding that has led me to feel resentful. And I'm ashamed of admitting that even out loud. I haven't said this to anyone, because I don't want to be invalidated. I think resentfulness is a very misinterpreted emotion, for the most part anyways. And it has a very negative connotation, understandably so, but that was the fourth word of 2025. So my 4 words: dark, identity crisis, which I guess can just be one, and then resentfulness. From the journal entries, from reflecting on my year last year, that's my truth. 2025 broke me, and I've reached rock bottom before, but something about last year just feels different for me, and I still haven't processed that, so I still don't even know why that is, but that's just how I feel. But the great thing about rock bottom is that you can only go up from here. In the words of Hayley Williams on her song Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party, which was my second favorite album of last year. You can only go up from here. I had my mental breakdown last year. I reached a breaking point at some point, and you can only go up from here. Not all was bad, right? That's just the truth of life as well. It's never always bad. We have this negativity bias as humans, so not all was bad. Again, it was a very fulfilling and a very satisfying year. But it was also just overall really fucking dark. And so 2025 broke me. But that's okay, because this too shall pass. I think I said everything I wanted. Here's to better days. Take care, whoever you are. I'm sending peace. Peace and love to everyone. May we all be well. May we all be well.